Now, the National Treasury and the Department of Public Service and Administration, PSA, have launched a major verification drive, and that's to physically confirm the existence of more than 1 million national and provincial government employees. The move is aimed at cracking down on ghost workers, draining the public purse. South Africa's largest trade union federation, that's COSATU, has welcomed the initiative, saying it could help root out corruption and restore integrity in public service. We speak now to COSATU's parliamentary coordinator, Matthew Parks. Matthew, one thing's for sure, when we look at the cost it usually takes when we're paying government employees, it's always just this massive amount. But if there's so much as possibly 1 million employees or so that, or just around, a very high number here that we're talking about, 1.2 million that will be verified in this entire process. I mean, it tells you just the scale of what we're talking about here with the number of employees that could actually be ghost employees here.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. So this is something we've been raising for quite some time as COSATU. We felt it's been wrong for government to squeeze public servants, nurses, teachers, police officers' salaries, when we should rather be checking if everybody is a legitimate actual employee. We have instances before of ghost workers. In PRASA, they found about 3,000 ghost employees were corruptly created, which was a huge drain. We've had reports in some of the public employment programs of individuals within the state creating ghost employees and pocketing the money. We suspect in some of the entities, some of the provincial departments and municipalities you may find likewise. And for us, this is a really grotesque type of state capture and corruption. Ordinary public servants are doing the level best to provide healthcare, education, home affairs, policing, etc. And when you can't fill vacancies because we've got ghost posts, that puts an unfair burden upon them. Many nurses, for example, are performing 2 or 3 shifts at a time. They're covering 2 or 3 vacancies because of it. Public servants are heavily drowning debt. So if we're able to save money here, that means we can pay public servants a better wage. It also critically must mean that we can actually fill those vacancies with warm bodies. We can help reduce unemployment. We can help improve public service delivery. So this is a welcome initiative. It also will build confidence in society in the state that we're dealing with the issue of corruption. It'll send a positive message as well.
But do you have an estimation of how much it's costing the fiscus every year?
Look, it's impossible to have an exact scientific figure because obviously it's corruption. Nobody declares corruption, but reports indicate it could be up to 4 billion rand. Even if it's only half of that, that's a significant amount of money. And so I think for us, whatever we can do, it's a welcome victory. It's going to give a sense of surety to society that the money is safe. It's also going to help cleanse the image of ordinary public servants who are doing the level best to provide public services. But I think for us what's critical is that there must be oversight over the verification, because you don't want the same compromised individuals who have created the ghost post to be enabled to cover the tracks, because these are obviously inside jobs. You also don't want a scenario where, for example, that money is saved and then it just simply used to pay off the debt, reduce expenditure. We need to fill those vacancies with actual warm bodies so that the public services can fulfill their mandate to provide the goods that society depends upon. So I think for us it's a welcome step forward, and it's something we need to do, but also it mustn't just be the public service departments, which is about 2/3 of the state. It must include the state-owned enterprises, the public sector entities and municipalities as well. But this is a good step forward, and I think for us it's a sign of renewal and cleansing of the state and saving money to enable the state to fulfill its mandate.
Look, I mean, even if it's half that figure for 4 billion that you posted up, even if it's half that figure, just imagine how much you can do when one considers the SIU report on Tembisa Hospital. So that kind of tells you the scale of what we're talking about here as well. Why do you think it's taken this long for government to actually initiate the sweeping physical verification, especially when you've been flagging this issue of ghost employees and many others for quite some time now?
Look, I think unfortunately it's the nature of the state, not just here across the world, to move very slowly, and that's always a frustrating point. We've been raising for the past 5 years or so at Parliament that this is a better way of managing fiscal challenges in the state than just not filling vacancies or not giving a wage increase. This is a much more effective way of doing it. But nonetheless, we welcome it. There's already progress. We've seen reports from some of our unions in the public service, be it the teachers or nurses, etc., that they've completed their verification. It's not that difficult of a thing to do. Yes, the public service in the sector is about 1.2 million, but not everybody's at one workstation. You might have 30 teachers at one school. You might have 20 nurses at one hospital, etc. So you can do it quite quickly. DPSA set a firm binding target. It must be done by February next year. So as part of this year's budget agreement that will be concluded with this financial year, that's a positive sign. And I think it's critical for government also to provide regular reports to Parliament. This is what we managed to achieve. These are the persons we've managed to cleanse the system. But also critically, we need to see from law enforcement action by those individuals who corrupted the personnel registries, and that there are real consequences for them, because these ghost posts don't create themselves. There's somebody in management, there's somebody in HR who is fiddled with the system.
Yeah.
And there needs to be consequences in that regard.
And I was going to ask you just about those consequences. What do you think those should be if somebody is found to have either created those ghost employees, allowed somebody to create them, fiddled with the payment system, etc.? What consequence management should be in place here, do you think?
Well, it's theft, it's fraud, it's corruption, and that's a criminal offence, and they must go to prison. They must be arrested. The Auditing Act was amended by Parliament about 5 years ago to enable the state to go after people's assets that they're found to be involved in corruption or fraud and so forth. So there must be real action. We must throw the book at them, because this undermines the efforts of the state to provide public services to working class communities. It tarnishes the good image of ordinary police officers and teachers and nurses and so forth. And it denies society public services they desperately need and the economy requires to grow.
Yeah. Do you trust the verification process? Do you have confidence in it, or will there be some sort of oversight committee, board, etc., that will at least be able to look, that is independent of government itself, being able to ensure that this happens correctly?
So I think we believe there has been some collaboration, and we think that's critical with the Auditor General, with the Public Service Commission, with the South African Revenue Service and Home Affairs. That's key. And we need to make sure that really does happen, because the last thing you want is to depend upon the very same HR manager who has fiddled with the books to tell you that the books are clean. So there's got to be that kind of scrutiny. And this also shouldn't just be a once-off thing. Most public service institutions do have annual verification of assets, both fixed and movable assets. This needs to be part of it. It must be a routine part of ensuring the integrity of the state and that there is no corruption. So we think this should actually be an annual exercise, and that's going to go a long way, because you will have some person who will find a way to cut corners. That will obviously happen. But if you do it routinely, it's going to make it more and more difficult, and eventually you're going to make sure the system is thoroughly cleaned and the state is protected from corruption.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Matthew Parks, thank you so much for the time this morning.